And most of the time, it's because they let their thoughts get in the way. They think that they're not good enough. They think they shouldn't be posting it. They think people will think it's silly. They don't have that inner confidence and they are hesitant. So they may batch a whole month's worth of content and then not actually do anything with it. Or they may not even get to that point where they want to film something or they want to batch because they're just unsure. And I think that this is, I'm just seeing it so much the more that I'm working with people.
This is Get Unstuck Podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who prioritize their life first, business second. I'm Mutita Panmuk, your host, who dedicates my life to designing and building a business that supports lifestyle. We will learn together from entrepreneurs around the world how they overcome their life challenges, their business obstacles, and yet still get unstuck from the hamster wheel of burying themselves into their business. Because time is the number one commodity in the world that you cannot get back once it's gone. So let's shorten the learning curve and see how can we prioritize better. Let's get unstuck. Hi, Get Unstuck Nation. We have a content creator expert today who her energy is so bright, and you will meet her a little bit shortly here in a second. So Georgia Williams is an award-nominated content creator with more than a decade of experience in social media marketing and Canva design. And she also a podcast host called Content Tea with G. She's also a singer as well, you know. So without further ado, please welcome Georgia to Get Unstuck podcast today. So hi, how are you doing?
Hello, thank you so much for having me. What an intro that was. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, like the very first time that I see your picture, especially when I visit your website, I'm like, oh my gosh, her energy through those branding and like the yellowness of the sunshine. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like want to talk to her already. So I'm so honored to have you on the show today, Georgia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm pleasure to be here.
Before we get into it, how did you started this entrepreneur journey, this branding, the Sunshine brand?
Yeah, I actually had never had any intentions to be an entrepreneur, believe it or not. I kind of fell into it a little bit because I've always worked in marketing and social media marketing, but I was in an employed position. And then when COVID came along, I got made redundant. So I kind of was at the crossroads of, do I join everybody else and put my CV in, try and get some other job in marketing, like most other people that were also being made redundant? Or do I set up my own business and just see what happens? And that is how I became an entrepreneur. One of my entrepreneurial friends, actually called Gemma, she has a super successful whole food business. And I text her when I lost my job and I said, I've lost my job. Do you have anything that I can just do for you, you know, because obviously I needed money. And she turned around to me and she said, when are you setting up your business? And I just laughed, you know, I was like, oh, very funny. No, that's not for me. And she was very serious. And, you know, her belief in me that was even possible was such a massive turning point for me because, and I don't think she knew it at the time, but that was the reason why I actually went, okay, maybe I could be an entrepreneur or have my own business, or, you know, and that's how I started it. And we are 4.5 years later and creating content and just loving it. So I'm very glad that I listened to Gemma. Shout out to Gemma. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think I'm so a big believer that friends who are with you at your bottoms are really the one that stay. Like they will see through you, right?
Yeah.
That where you are and what your potential really is at that point. Because like you have nothing left at that point.
Absolutely.
So, and how did you start it from there? Because you didn't even know what to start in it back then.
Yeah, well, I had the social media experience behind me. So it kind of made sense to do something that I had been doing. So I knew that it was always going to be marketing and social media marketing. And I actually said, if I can just make the amount of money to cover my mortgage payment, I'll be okay. So that was my focus. I didn't have any kind of big dreams to work for myself, you know, or have these expensive holidays or staff or anything like that. I just was like, I just need to pay my mortgage because otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. And Gemma was one of my first clients. And it kind of snowballed from there, because I guess once you get one great client that is willing to shout about you from the rooftops, it can be a domino effect, and other people see that. So I was very fortunate that was the start of my journey. But then I equally had times in my business where I had no clients and I had to really think for myself, what are you doing? What do you want to do? What's your path? So it has been a journey, for want of a better word, up and down. It's not always just been there you go, you know what you're doing now.
Yeah, I definitely understand, because if you have an agency work, you know exactly how it's like when you don't have a project, that would be the issue when you don't have a client at the period of time, or you need to really find a client. So that's how the creating the content flywheel would come into place, isn't it? That's how you keep marketing yourself consistently to keep your clients enrolling, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I was guilty of just having clients straight away. So I didn't think, I need to continue marketing myself, So actually when those clients begin to change, I then had to go and market myself and realize the hard way that actually I should have always been posting on social, having conversations, creating content. I always should have had that in the background. But sometimes we learn the hard way, don't we?
Yeah. So what actually works from your experience? I'm still struggling with that though. Until now, I decided to do the podcast as the most consistently thing. Because I'm not a social media person that much as well. Still learning to cope with that though. Yeah. But I find that each person using social media different ways to promote the business. So how the clients come to you? What is the most problematic problem? The most issue that they have?
A lot of clients that come to me, they don't know how to open Canva and create something that looks good. They might have an idea in their head that they want to say this, or they want to say that, or they want to promote themselves, they want to show up, but that's an idea, and that's normally how it stays, because they are hesitant, they overthink things, they might not have the skills required. They're not graphic designers, they are marketers, or they are business owners, so they have that barrier because they don't know what visually is good design. So they come to me, they say, you know more about Canva than I do, please help me with my graphics. But I think that a lot of the time it is consistency that can help people. I think a lot of the time we look at social media as a quick fix, and we think it's got to be the thing, that if we're doing well on it, our businesses will succeed. But actually it's part of the puzzle, and we also should have the email lists, we should have the website sorted, we should have maybe a podcast or a YouTube channel, or all these other different things that we should have in connection, instead of putting that focus just on social media because we see other people having great likes, having great followers, and skyrocketing. We don't know what else is in the background for them. It might not just be social media.
It might not be just social media. Yeah, because there are many things else to do to get clients. It's not only the online world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what would you suggest in terms of okay, let's step back. What is more important between have a brand identity clear of color, the brand book clear, the color, logo, the branding stuff clear, or just start posting first and figure out the tone of voice or something? Which one is more important?
I don't know if there's an answer to that question. I think what I consider to be more important than anything is to nail your messaging and where you are sat. Where is your position? Because you could have the most beautiful content that I could create, you could create, but if it doesn't actually communicate what you want it to say to attract those people that you want to work with, then there's no point. There's no point having a wonderful brand that's pretty and that looks amazing if you are completely different or completely opposite, or you're trying to attract completely different people. So I don't think it's a case of it's one or the other. I think that if you can really understand where your client is that you want to reach, that you want to speak to, how to reach them, how to meet them where they're at, and how to get them to where they need to go, then the content and the branding is icing on the cake with that. You could have an amazing branding package done for you, but if you don't know what to do with it after that, then it's going to be really difficult. So I guess it's not a case of one or the other. It's a mix again, but if you can nail the positioning, you're halfway there.
So actually client profile is more important to communicate then?
Yes, every time.
Yeah. So what about the consistency? Like how often we should post the content?
Okay, so I think that we often look at people that are posting every day and we think that they're successful. So we adopt that they are doing that, so we should do that. Or we adopt well, I can only post 2 times a week and that's not good enough. And I think we are putting too much pressure on how many times we have to post because we see other people saying that you should post every day or you should show up every day. The way that I like to see it is if you can only show up once a week, but that one time that you show up it makes sense to your audience. It's perfectly aligned with what your client needs. It's content that's good quality. Like only show up once, it's better to show up once and it be all of those than showing up every day and it just be for the sake of showing up, pointless posts, pointless images on your camera roll, whatever it is. There's no point to that. It's just a waste of time. It's not going to move that needle in terms of where you want to get.
So you need to test basically because no one really know the future.
This is it. And anyone that says to you, you have to post 10 times a day, they have a different strategy for where they are going. And they may be doing ads in the background. They may have all sorts of other things that you can't see. So actually, if they're posting 3 times a day or 10 times a day, whatever they're saying, it's part of their strategy. But if you have your strategy and it's working for you, then there's no reason why you should change that.
Yeah. If it's working, keep doing that.
Okay.
So when the clients come to you, what would be the first thing usually you would tackle first?
The first thing that I ask clients to have is normally some kind of branding. And this is not because the branding comes first, but because from a designing point of view, if they come to me and they say, just design anything. I mean, how many colors are there out in the world? How many fonts are there out in the world? I could put together numerous different examples of content, but it goes a bit deeper. So I normally say to them, what is it that you actually like? What is the kind of aesthetic you like? Where do you want to be? How do you want to look? Who are you talking to? What's your demographic? What do you sell? All of those different things, because that is what I take into account when I'm creating that content. If they don't have any of that, it's really difficult to work with somebody because they don't have a good idea of what they need or what they like. So I could create anything, I might create a set of graphics that are all black and white. I could create pink and blue, it's completely different. So they need to have a good idea of who they are, even if they can't communicate that. If they can come to me and say, this is what I like, can you do something with that? Then obviously that's something for me to work with.
And if you met some clients who having those problems, like I don't really know what I want or I don't have any ideas, can you do it for me? How do you deal with them usually?
So usually I refer them to a branding expert or a specialist because
to figure that out first.
Yeah. Because I create the content for them. I'm not a brand expert or a brand specialist. I don't do branding. I don't design logos. I create the content with what you have had done. So that is the foundation for them really to go away and do that. And I would say 90% of the people that I work with already have some sort of idea. Even if they're tuning it as they go along or tweaking it, they do have a good foundation of branding when it comes to content creation.
Okay. So you refer that back. Okay. That's good. And okay. So once we have that first pinpoint now, okay, we know the branding, we know the tonality. So we have the starting point. We know who we speak into. Then there are 2 ways to consider this. So which platform we're going to post, right? And also what type of content that we are creating. How we know which one comes first.
Again, it's just part of their overall marketing strategy. And they either work on that with me. So I would take them through a strategy, look at what their ideal clients are looking for. If, for example, the client they want to attract likes information, it might be that we do lots of carousels or blog posts. If they like lots of short form content, it could be reels, it could be humorous content. It again just depends on who they're trying to reach as to what we do, because it's not a one size fits all. So we would explore that together. Obviously, either I write a strategy or they sometimes come to me with a strategy as well that they've had done or that they've done themselves. And then we create the magic from that strategy.
How about the trending? Like, for example, these days people are doing all shorts videos, right? And also repurposing the video. Like, for example, this podcast will be repurposed to many shorts video afterward. Do we have to do that like how other people do?
No. you do what you feel more aligned to do, because that will come across. If you don't like trends, don't do them, because you will stand there looking miserable trying to get on board with a trend, and it's not going to come across. People are really smart when they consume content. They can tell whether you're in it, your heart is in it, you're happy, you're miserable. So the first thing is, don't do anything that you're not fully aligned with your brands, your values, and things that really matter to you. But I do think that trend-led content can work when it's applicable to your industry. So when you're taking a trend and you're saying, okay, this is having a moment, on social, it's popular. So how can we make that applicable to what we sell, what we offer, and also the sense of humor that our audience has? Because it might be that you think, oh, this is hilarious, but actually you're working with really serious people who will look at that and think, what is this? And they'll unfollow, or that's not for them. So you've got to consider how you feel, but then also who is consuming that and their behaviors and what they like as well.
And these are coming. How long do you test this? Like when we come up with a new marketing strategy, how long do you validate the result?
I would love to test for 3 to 6 months as a minimum.
Oh, that long.
Yeah. And if I can stretch it to 6 months, then I would. And typically when I'm doing it for myself, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a content strategy from the beginning of the year until about summertime, and then from summer until the end of the year. That's how I structure my own, just because I think there's so much that happens in the world and around us, that can affect different things. If we're not giving it enough time, we can be quick to write it off and say, oh, it didn't work because of this, when actually it could be something that's totally out of our control.
Yeah, because 6 months have a few holidays and also like some big events happens already, right?
Yeah.
And then another half of the year, because that is 2 quarters. That is longer than 90 days. Oh, I didn't think that long. Okay, that's a new perspective. Never thought about that. I always think only 90 days. That is like already long, but like 6 months is long.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very patient. So to think about
patient. Yeah, you do. I think some people, are absolutely fine to have a 90-day strategy. I don't think that that's too quick, but I think it's more depending on what your objectives are. You might need a bit longer than that 90-day.
Yeah, it depends on the goal, the bigger goals, right? I think it's going back to what is your strategy, what is the thing that you're moving towards as well. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think another things that having issue. Okay, so let's say that we figure out the platform, the type of content, how many content we're gonna create. I think another issue would be like how often we're gonna create it. I used to, like, this company used to run an agency, and let me tell you, it's kind of crazy because the agency work, if anyone doesn't know, the problem is that we need to wait until the client send us the material.
Yeah.
And that is the craziest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna send in the videos or like any updated pictures or like updated information in time.
Yeah.
Or any like new promotion of the next month, because we're gonna create it like bulk created for the next month, and then we're gonna design the graphic blah 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 like a month ahead or like 2 months ahead, because we have to do the work, right? And then we have to wait until editing as well. So that's the crazy things of doing agency. So I'm asking you, how do you do that? Like, how do you work with your clients in that case? Because I know that that's the reason why we stopped doing agency work.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I used to work in an agency when I was an employed marketer. We had the same. We were having clients that we were kind of like begging them for content because we just had nothing. And that's really difficult because the content creation for them is not their priority. It's not their job. That's why they've outsourced to an agency. And it's not something that they're really that interested in either. So they don't get it as much. I think that's the reason why I always try and have like a longer lead time on things so that I can allow for those delays. But I know from the agencies that I work with, I have to organize them a little bit more, and kind of just set those boundaries and say, I need this from you by this day, otherwise I can't deliver this. And if it's in black and white, and I've kind of said what I've said, there's nothing else that I can do. If someone doesn't supply that content, you cannot make content content from thin air. You have to have something to work with. So I think it's just about setting those boundaries, reiterating that things are not going to happen if we don't have some kind of collaboration or cooperation from the agency, and just taking that responsibility kind of off of you, because it's not really yours, is it? When people are not delivering. But it is tough. It's hard to create something, and in that instance it would be graphics or things that were not including any employees or needing any of their assistance that you could create in lieu of getting something from them. But it's very difficult. Agreed. It's hard.
But for the client itself, like, think about if you suggest them the strategy and they have to do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think most of them do it daily, or you suggest them to like bulk create like once a month or like once a week? What would you usually suggest them to do?
So the way that I work is I have everybody book in my diary for that month. So a week before their date that they've booked in, they get a reminder saying, I need this from you so that I can create on your specific slot on your day. I would say that half of my clients reply straight away and say, brilliant, here you go, thanks for the reminder. And the other half are kind of maybe the day before, which is still fine, because I've got it in time. But they send me what they need me to create, and then I would batch create those graphics for them, and they would get them back as a batch, which means that then they can obviously schedule them in. They can have a business support schedule them in for them on their behalf. But batching, it just makes sense for people who are busy. And I know that people hate doing it, but it just saves time. It's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, I agree. Like saving the days to like recording videos, for example, for the whole month.
Yeah.
It could be long for the first time that you do it, but after you have done it like for a couple of months, you know already what you're gonna do. Keep changing the shirt and keep recording it. But the hardest part is to write a script though.
Yes, it is.
Like once the script is done, you're good to go because you have something to read and prepare.
Yeah.
So another thing, the consistency of the post. So right now we have created it, right? Like we have the ideas of like, okay, this is what we're going to talk. We have the material, everything edited. What's stopping them for posting?
And most of the time it's because they let their thoughts get in the way. They think that they're not good enough. They think they shouldn't be posting it. They think people will think it's silly. They don't have that inner confidence. They are hesitant. So they may batch a whole month's worth of content and then not actually do anything with it. Or they may not even get to that point where they want to film something or they want to batch because they're just unsure. And I think that I'm just seeing it so much the more that I'm working with people, and particularly women. They don't have that confidence to just say, this is who I am, this is my brand, and this is my business, and these are all areas of my business. They don't want to share the struggle perhaps, or they don't want to share things that make them vulnerable. But I think that we are missing a trick by not sharing vulnerability, and I think it's real. If it's genuine, we can see through that if it's not. So why are we so hesitant not to share parts of ourselves in our business? If you can't do something in your business, hold your hands up and say, you know what, that's not my skill, that's not my superpower, but somebody else's it is, and be vulnerable, because you never know who is out there that needs to hear that can identify with that and become part of your world just because you were vulnerable and honest.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, there are people who already created everything but not posted as well.
Yeah, there are.
Wow. And I think that is another issue though. If they feel like they are unsure with the plan, like why not so much engagement of the post that we are posting or something, but we want to experience it for like 6 months, for example.
Yeah.
How can we keep ourselves patient that we are testing this long term?
We have to remind ourselves that every piece of content that we put out there is part of a bigger picture. We put too much pressure on one post absolutely saving our businesses or marketing our businesses. We think if we just have that one thing that goes viral, we'll be okay, we'll be fine. But actually it's slotting those pieces into the part of the puzzle so that it makes that bigger picture. It gives people an overall idea. So I try and look at every bit of my content like that. If something doesn't perform, I'm not going to sit there and go, it's part of the bigger picture, it's fine. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm obviously going to look at it and think, why didn't that perform? Was my messaging off? Did it need tweaking? Did it not look aesthetic compared to what people are used to? Is that true? How is that not aligning with what my client and ideal audience want? And I reassess it, but I still look at it as part of the bigger picture, as my overall messaging and my overall positioning, rather than thinking, oh, well, that one post didn't do well. Well, I'm rubbish. Well, that's awful. See you later, and give up, because I think it's easy for us to give up.
In case anyone want to work with you, like if they want to learn more about you, where can they find you or reach out to you then?
You can come and find me on Instagram. That is where I live most of my life. On Instagram at Ray of Social. Come and say hello.
Okay, so we'll make sure that all the links will be here. Also the website as well, right? rayofsocial.com. We'll make sure that it will be here in the description as well as in the show notes. So thank you so much, Georgia, to joining Get Unstuck podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Have a great day ahead. I hope this episode inspires you wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey, so that you can have your business that supports your lifestyle. Get a show note at getunstuckmethod.com/podcast. Review what you have learned together today and start implementing right now. See it by yourself. The result of your consistent action are worth it. You deserve the freedom to enjoy your life. Until the next episode, let's get unstuck.